All right, so listen to this. You ready for this? You won't believe what just happened in the tech world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, remember that whole thing about like the US China tech
Oh,
race?
yeah.
Looks like China just like pulled this major power move, you know.
Hmm.
And some American CEOs are starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I've been hearing a little bit about that. What's really interesting is that it's more than competition. You know,
Right.
it's like a potential like power shift globally,
Mm.
and it all comes down to artificial intelligence.
So you're talking about China's new AI, the DeepSeek R1, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's making some waves.
yeah. It's causing a lot of chatter.
And the timing is really interesting. I mean, they dropped this on the same day that Donald Trump went back to the White House.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence.
I don't think so either.
No, no, it's definitely a strategic move. I mean, think about it. A new AI tool emerging
Yeah.
just as the U.S. is trying to like restrict China's access to all this technology,
Yeah.
with sanctions.
Right.
It's like they're sending a message.
Yeah.
We don't need you to innovate. We
Right.
got this.
So this DeepSeek R1, what's the big deal? Why is everybody freaking out? Why are American tech leaders suddenly sweating? What did China do here?
Okay, well, first off, speed.
Okay.
DeepSeek R1 was developed in 2 months
What?
on a budget of $6 million.
Uh-huh.
Think about that compared to what American companies are spending.
Billions, yeah.
Billions and billions of dollars. Yeah.
Few months. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So it was probably, rushed and full of bugs and,
Nope.
really.
Nope. Independent testing is showing that it's like as good as the models created by OpenAI,
Wow.
which is like the leader in the field.
So not only was it fast, not only was it cheap, but it's also good.
And even Mark Andreessen called it one of the most amazing and impressive breakthroughs that he's ever seen.
Wow. That is a game changer. So what's their secret? How did they pull that off?
That's what everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Um, some people speculate it's just a combination of government backing, streamlined development processes, and a real laser focus on practical applications. But it challenges a lot of assumptions about how you develop AI, how quickly, and how efficiently.
It really does. And just to make things even more dramatic, our source is saying that engineers are like frantically trying to figure out DeepSeek.
Oh yeah, everybody's
Like how did they pull this off?
dissect it, yeah, copy it.
Yeah. And replicate it. It's like this gold rush in the tech world.
Yeah, well, and that's not even the craziest part. Okay, DeepSeek R1 is open source.
Okay, hold on. Break that down for me. Why is open source such a big deal in AI? Is this just like some techie thing, or does this actually impact like, the average person?
Yeah, no, this impacts everyone potentially. Think about it this way. Imagine if like all the most advanced AI tools weren't locked up by giant companies.
Mm.
That's what open source does.
Yeah.
It makes it so anybody can use it,
Wow.
modify it, distribute it.
Huh.
So it's like leveling the playing field for smaller companies,
Right, yeah.
startups, even individual developers.
So China's basically saying like, hey, here's this powerful tool. Go use it. Go improve it. Let's all benefit from it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold move, especially, given all the tensions right now between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's a big departure from the normal, proprietary technology like that we're used to.
Right, right.
And some experts are saying that, this might have been the plan all along to like use open source AI to take on the American tech giants.
Wow. Yeah, I can see why American CEOs might be a little uneasy right now, especially since it looks like the U.S. might have like accidentally helped create DeepSeek.
The sanctions.
Yeah, the whole idea was to kind of like contain China's tech growth, right? But now it looks like those sanctions might have like totally backfired.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, right? By cutting China off from all the American microchips and all that, they were forced to become self-reliant,
Right.
right? So they took all their resources, they put them into their domestic tech companies, and bam, DeepSeek.
So it's like, like trying to hold back a river,
Yeah.
You can try to like divert it for a little while, but eventually it's going to find a way and it's going to flow even stronger.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, and our source material even uses this phrase, globalization frenzy, to describe how Chinese companies reacted. They had to innovate, they had to expand globally faster than they would have otherwise.
So this all comes back to those microchips, how those sanctions may have like pushed China towards AI dominance.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, for years, China was the biggest buyer of American microchips. but then they couldn't get them anymore. So they had to figure something else out. So
Yeah.
they put all that money into their own companies, into research and development.
And that's what led to DeepSeek R1 is like this chain reaction, right?
Yeah.
One thing leads to another, leads to another.
Yeah, and it shows how innovation works, right?
Yeah.
You try to stifle it one place, it'll pop up someplace else.
It's like that game, Whack-A-Mole.
Exactly.
You push one down and another one pops up.
You can't stop it. And
Yeah.
the thing is, it's not just about China winning and the U.S. losing. Our source material quotes Singapore's ambassador to the UN saying that the U.S. is decoupling from the rest of the world.
Wow. What does that even mean? What is a decoupled world? What does that even look like?
Well, it's like a breakup, right, of the global economy. If the U.S. keeps going down this road of, isolationism, protectionism,
Yeah.
it risks, pushing its allies towards China. And then all of a sudden you've got this world where global trade is all messed up.
Right.
Supply chains are broken. Like, we're already seeing hints of this, right?
Yeah.
With that map showing all the restrictions on AI chips,
Right.
it's not just China. It's like Mexico, India, even close allies
Yeah.
are facing these limitations.
And it seems so counterintuitive, right? Like in this world that's so interconnected, shouldn't collaboration be the key?
It should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to do everything on your own in tech, especially something as complicated as AI,
Right.
is not only difficult, it's dangerous.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the geopolitical shifts. We talked about unintended consequences. We talked about a fractured world.
Yeah.
But how does this connect to everyday people? How does this impact our lives, beyond investments?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important question. These advancements in AI, especially with open source models like DeepSeek R1, have the potential to completely change our lives.
In what ways?
I mean, think about it. Imagine healthcare systems powered by AI that can diagnose diseases like that, or personalized education platforms that adapt to how every student learns best.
Wow.
I mean, even AI-driven transportation systems that could get rid of traffic jams, make things safer.
So it's not just about robots taking over the world. There's actual potential for good here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we have to remember, AI is a tool. And it's up to us, the humans who are developing it and using it, how it gets used.
Which brings us back to, the ethics, right?
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that AI is used to help people, not to control them, not to manipulate them.
Right. We need to have open and honest conversations about the risks, about the challenges.
Right.
We need to be aware of the unintended consequences.
Right, right. Okay, so we've covered a lot here. China's advancements in AI, the potential for profit in a world that's changing, and the ethical considerations of AI.
Yeah.
But we haven't really talked about Trump's return to the White House and what that means for all of this.
Yes. The wild card.
The wild card.
It's so hard to predict what he's going to do.
Yeah.
How he's going to deal with China and this tech race.
Yeah, because our source material mentions that, he could try to really contain China even more.
Yeah.
Or he could, and I know this sounds crazy, but he could also, shift toward cooperation.
Right.
Which path do you think is more likely?
If we look at his past,
Yeah.
the America First approach seems more likely.
Right.
He's been really, really outspoken about his concerns about China's trade practices and stuff.
Right. I mean, he was the one who started the trade war to try to level the playing field.
Right. But, and this is where things get really interesting, Trump's also a pragmatist.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to make deals.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be shocking if he saw some benefit in working with China on AI.
Huh. Cooperation. I don't know. I'm having a hard time picturing that. How would that even work? What would cooperation between the U.S. and China on AI look like?
Well, it could be a lot of things, like joint research projects where scientists from both countries work together, data sharing agreements, and maybe the most important thing, working together to figure out ethical guidelines for AI to make sure it's used responsibly by everybody.
Okay, but wouldn't that be risky? Sharing all this technology with a country that's also a major competitor.
I mean, there's always risk with collaboration,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as powerful as AI. But think about what could happen if they don't work together. An AI arms race, where each side is just trying to beat the other one, and no one's thinking about the consequences.
Right.
That could lead to AI being used as a weapon, all sorts of things we can't even imagine yet.
It's like that old saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
I mean, haven't we learned anything from the nuclear arms race back in the 20th century? It's just too risky to go down that road again, especially with AI.
Yeah, I think that's why that article in MIT Technology Review really hit home for me.
Right.
It said there can be no winners in an AI arms race.
Hmm.
Like, it's not a game.
Right.
The stakes are way too high. It could affect all of humanity.
So it feels like we're at this crossroads, right? Competition or cooperation, isolation or collaboration. And Trump, being the wild card that he is, really holds a lot of power in deciding which way we go, at least for the U.S.
Yeah, and his decision will affect not just the U.S. and China, but the whole world. The future of AI, its potential to help us or hurt us, depends on that.
Man, it's a lot to process. I mean, even for someone like me who follows this stuff pretty closely. So if you had to pick one key takeaway, what would it be? What should our listener really understand after listening to this?
I would say the biggest thing is we're entering a whole new world. The old rules of technology, of global power, they're gone.
Yeah.
China's rise is happening. AI is changing everything. And leaders like Trump will decide how it all plays out.
And it's not just about governments and companies, right?
Sure.
This affects all of us personally.
It changes the jobs we do, the way we live, everything.
It's exciting and scary at the same time.
Totally. We could build a future where AI helps us solve huge problems like climate change, diseases. But we have to be careful.
Sure.
Make sure that these technologies are used the right way for everyone, not just a few people.
So what can our listeners do? It seems so big, so complicated. How can one person make a difference?
That's a great question, and it's really important. It starts with just being aware. Learn about AI, what it can do, how it might affect society.
Right.
The more you know, the better you'll be able to navigate this whole thing,
Right.
Make good decisions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to challenge what you hear, to talk about how AI should be used ethically. The future of AI is being shaped right now by the choices we make, every single one of us.
So this might sound a little dramatic, but it really feels like we're at this turning point.
Yeah.
The choices we make today, they're going to decide what the future looks like for us and for generations to come.
You're not being dramatic. That's the truth. The future isn't set. It's being created right now by everything we do.
So to leave our listener with one final thought, something to really think about. What role do you want to play in shaping the future of AI? That's a big question.
It is.
And it's one worth thinking about carefully.
Yeah, it is. And on that note, we're going to wrap up part 1 of this deep dive. It's been quite a journey so far, with a lot of surprising discoveries, thought-provoking stuff, and honestly, a lot of uncertainty. But that's the world we live in now, isn't it? Always changing, always challenging us to adapt and think critically. We'll be back with part 2 soon, but until then, stay curious and keep exploring.
See. Okay, so we've got this incredible AI tool developed crazy fast, a potential shift in global tech, and Trump is back in the White House.
Right.
It's a lot to take in. You know what I find really interesting, though? The source material keeps mentioning how understanding geopolitics can be profitable.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
So it's about connecting those dots
Okay.
between what's happening in the world and what's happening with the economy. For example, the trade war,
Yeah.
the one that was supposed to weaken China's economy.
Right.
Well, it might have actually done the opposite.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
I thought the whole point was to curb China's growth and bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
Yeah, that was the idea.
Yeah.
But 7 years later, China's trade surplus has actually exploded to almost $1 trillion.
$1 trillion. That's mind-blowing. So it sounds like someone needs to tell the new administration that their playbook might need a little updating.
Yeah, well, the Wall Street Journal actually published a piece warning about this exact thing, saying that China has a $1 trillion head start in any future trade war.
Wow.
And it's not just the surplus. China's share of global industrial production has actually gone up since the trade war started.
Huh.
I mean, by 2030, the UN thinks China will be responsible for 45% of all global industry.
45%. That's a huge chunk. So it's like the U.S. tried to slow down China's economy, and instead of hitting the brakes, they just shifted into a higher gear.
Yeah, exactly. And our source even uses this phrase, globalization frenzy.
Globalization frenzy. Yeah.
To describe how Chinese companies reacted. They were forced to innovate, go global even faster than before.
And this kind of circles back to the microchip thing, right?
Yeah.
How those sanctions might have pushed China towards AI dominance.
Totally. For years, China was buying tons of American microchips.
Mm.
But when that stopped, they had to get creative.
Right.
They redirected all those resources, all that money, to their own companies, to research and development.
And that led to breakthroughs like DeepSeek R1. It's like, like a domino effect.
Exactly. One thing leads to another.
Yeah.
And it just shows you can't really stop innovation.
Right.
You try to block it in one place, it just pops up somewhere else.
But it's not just about China winning and the U.S. losing, though, right?
No.
Our source quotes Singapore's former ambassador to the UN who warns that the U.S. is decoupling from the rest of the world. What are the implications of that? Like, what does that even mean, a decoupled world?
Well, think of it like a global economic breakup.
Okay.
If the U.S. keeps going down this path, being isolationist, protectionist, it's going to push its allies towards China. And then you have this world where global trade is a mess.
Right. Yeah.
Supply chains are broken, and nobody trusts each other.
Yeah, and we're already seeing a little bit of that, right? With that map showing all the restrictions on AI chips.
Exactly.
It's not just China.
It's everyone.
It's close allies like Mexico and India. They're all facing limitations.
Yeah.
It seems so counterintuitive in a world that's so connected. Shouldn't we be working together more?
You would think, right? I mean, trying to do everything by yourself in tech, especially with something as crazy as AI, it's not smart, and it could be dangerous. Yeah, totally. All right, so we've talked about the geopolitical shifts, the unintended consequences, the possibility of a fractured world.
Yeah.
But how does all this connect back to the idea of profiting from this? I mean, I'm sure our listeners sitting there thinking like, how can I actually use this information?
Well, it's about spotting the trends and adjusting your investment strategy.
Okay.
Like if China is becoming this powerhouse in manufacturing and tech, maybe it makes sense to invest in companies that are going to benefit from that.
Are there any specific sectors or companies that jump out at you?
Well, our source really focuses on China's advancements in AI and semiconductors. Those are definitely areas to watch.
Right, and it even mentions that some top researchers in America are already using DeepSeek R1.
Yeah, even though it's a Chinese development.
Right, so if the top researchers are using it, that says something about its quality, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget, China is also investing a ton in renewable energy and electric vehicles.
Those sectors are going to be huge in the next few years, and China wants to be the leader.
So it's not just about sticking to the traditional markets, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding this shift, this geopolitical shift, and seeing the long-term potential.
Exactly. It's about realizing the world is changing and changing your investments with it. Don't be afraid to look beyond the familiar names. Consider companies that are aligned with these new trends.
Oh, this is fascinating. But what about the risks? I mean, our source talks about a potential U.S.-China AI arms race.
Right.
That sounds a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. More competition can lead to faster innovation, but it can also create a lot of instability and mistrust.
Right.
The key is finding a way to work together to make sure AI is used for good, not for bad.
And that MIT Technology Review article that we keep coming back to, it really emphasizes that there are no winners in an AI arms race.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that this isn't a game. The stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely. It really highlights how important dialogue and cooperation are. The future of AI can't be dictated by just one country. It takes a global effort to make sure these powerful technologies are developed and used responsibly.
Okay, so we've talked about these geopolitical shifts, the potential for profit, the risks involved. But how does this all filter down to the average person? Like, how will this affect our daily lives beyond investments?
Yeah, that's a crucial question. You know, these AI advancements, especially open source models like DeepSeek, they could revolutionize so many aspects of our lives.
Like, give us some concrete examples. What kind of changes might people actually see?
Well, imagine healthcare systems that use AI to diagnose diseases more accurately and quickly. Or personalized education platforms that adapt to each student's learning style.
Wow.
Even AI-driven transportation that could reduce traffic and make roads safer.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There's real potential for positive change.
Absolutely. But AI is a tool, remember. It's up to us, the humans building and using it, to decide how it gets used.
Which brings us back to those ethical considerations, right?
Exactly.
Making sure AI is used to empower people, not to exploit or manipulate them.
Right. We need to be having these open, honest discussions about the potential risks, the challenges. We need to be aware of the unintended consequences.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. China's AI advancements, the potential for profit in this shifting world, and the ethics of AI. But we haven't really talked about Trump's return to the White House and what that might mean for all of this.
Yes, the wild card.
The wild card.
It's really hard to say what he'll do, how he'll approach China and this whole tech race.
I mean, our source says he could try to really contain China even more, or, and I know this might sound crazy, but he could also shift towards cooperation.
Right, those are really the two main options.
Which path do you think is more likely?
Well, looking at his past, the America First approach seems more probable.
Right.
He's been very vocal about his concerns with China's trade practices and things like that.
Right. I mean, he was the one who launched the trade war, trying to level the playing field.
Exactly. However, and this is where things get interesting, Trump is also known for being a pragmatist.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a deal maker at heart.
Right.
So it wouldn't be totally shocking if he saw some benefits in working with China on AI, especially if it could benefit the U.S.
Okay, so cooperation, I don't know. I'm having a hard time picturing that. How would that even work? What would cooperation between the U.S. and China on AI even look like?
Well, it could involve a lot of different things,
Hmm.
like joint research projects where scientists and engineers from both countries are working together,
Hmm?
maybe data sharing agreements,
Right.
and potentially, and this is big, working together to establish ethical guidelines for AI development.
Yeah.
Making sure these technologies are used responsibly on a global scale.
Okay, so, but wouldn't that be risky, sharing all this cutting edge tech with a nation that's also a major competitor? Some people might say that's like giving away, your secret recipe.
Well, there's always going to be some risk with any type of collaboration, especially when you're talking about something as powerful as AI.
Right.
But think about what could happen if they don't cooperate. We could end up with an AI arms race where each side is just desperately trying to outdo the other without any thought for the consequences.
Yeah.
That could lead to uncontrolled development, AI being used as a weapon, and a whole bunch of other risks that we can't even imagine yet.
It's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
I mean, haven't we learned anything from the nuclear arms race of the 20th century? The risks are just too high to stumble into another one, this time with AI.
Absolutely. And that's why that MIT Technology Review article really struck a chord with me. There can be no winners in an AI arms race.
Right.
It's a chilling reminder that this isn't a game with clear winners and losers.
Right.
The stakes are just way too high. We're talking about potentially impacting the future of humanity itself.
So it seems like we're at a crossroads, facing a fundamental choice: competition or cooperation, isolation or collaboration. And Trump, being the unpredictable leader that he is, he really holds a lot of power in determining which path we take,
He
at
does.
least as far as the U.S. is concerned.
Yeah, and his decision will have ripple effects, not just for the U.S. and China, but for the entire world.
Right.
I mean, the future of AI, its potential to solve global challenges or to make them even worse, really hinges on this delicate balance.
It's a lot to process, even for someone who follows this stuff closely. I'm sure our listener is feeling a mix of fascination and concern, and maybe even a bit of overwhelm. So if you had to distill all of this down to one key takeaway, what would it be? What should our listener really walk away from this deep dive understanding?
I would say the key takeaway is that we're entering this new era, one where the old rules of technology and global power are being completely rewritten. China's rise is happening, AI is changing everything, and the decisions made by leaders like Trump will shape the course of history.
And it's not just about governments and corporations, right?
No, not at all.
This will impact all of us on a personal level. The jobs we do, the way we live, the very fabric of our society, it's all going to be influenced by these developments.
It's exciting, and it's a little bit daunting. We have this potential to create a future where AI helps us solve some of humanity's biggest problems, like climate change, disease. But we also have to be careful, make sure these technologies are used ethically and responsibly for everyone's benefit, not just a select few.
So what can our listener do? It all seems so massive and complex. How can one person possibly make a difference in the face of such powerful forces?
That's a great question, and it's really important. It starts with awareness. Stay informed about AI, its capabilities, and its potential impact on society.
Yeah.
The more you understand, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this changing world and make informed decisions.
So don't be afraid to ask tough questions, challenge assumptions, and really engage in conversations about the ethical use of AI. The future of AI isn't set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, individually and collectively.
Exactly. Become part of the conversation, advocate for responsible AI development, and support initiatives that promote collaboration and ethical use. Your voice matters, and collective action can create real change.
This might sound overly dramatic, but it really feels like we're at a crossroads. The choices we make today will determine what kind of future we create for ourselves and for future generations.
I don't think that's dramatic at all. That's
Right.
that's the reality we're facing. The future isn't fixed. It's being shaped right now by every decision we make, big or small.
So, to leave our listener with a final thought, something to really ponder as they go about their day, what role do you want to play in shaping the future of AI? It's a powerful question and one that deserves careful consideration.
Absolutely. It's a question we should all be asking ourselves. And on that note, let's hold off on that thought for now. We'll dive deeper into that in part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll try to make sense of this uncertain future and what it might mean for all of us. So, stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back, and remember that question we left hanging about Trump and what he might do with all this. China making waves in AI, this possible global tech race, and the unpredictable Trump back in charge.
Yeah, it's like we're watching this political thriller play out in real time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So is he going to double down on trying to contain China, trying to get the U.S. back on top in tech?
Mm.
Or could he actually, and I know this might sound crazy, but could he actually try to cooperate with China?
Well, if we look at, what he's done in the past, that America First strategy seems like the most likely option.
Right.
I mean, he's been very, very clear about his worries about China's trade practices, intellectual property, all that.
Right. He was the one who started the trade war in the first place, trying to level the playing field.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets interesting. Trump is also known for being a pragmatist.
Okay.
He's a deal maker.
Right.
So it wouldn't be totally out of character for him to see the upside of working with China on AI, especially if it could, help the U.S.
Sick of cooperation. I'm having trouble picturing that. How would that even work in practice? What would cooperation between these two, tech giants even look like?
Well, it could involve a bunch of things. I mean, you could have joint research projects.
Yeah.
Scientists and engineers from both countries working together, trying to push the boundaries of AI.
Yeah.
You could have data sharing agreements, giving both sides access to these huge data sets,
Right.
which could lead to new discoveries. And maybe most importantly, they could work together to come up with ethical guidelines for AI development, making sure that these technologies are used responsibly globally.
Okay, but wouldn't that be risky? Sharing all this advanced technology with a country that's also like your biggest competitor. I mean, some people might say that's like giving away the secret formula for your best-selling product.
Well, sure, there's always some risk involved in any kind of collaboration, especially when you talk about something as powerful as AI.
Right.
But you got to think about the alternative, right? What if they don't cooperate? Then you have an AI arms race, each side frantically trying to outdo the other with no regard for the consequences.
Right.
I mean, that could lead to AI development spiraling out of control, AI being weaponized, and who knows what other risks we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
I mean, haven't we learned anything from the nuclear arms race back in the 20th century?
Yeah.
The stakes are just too high to risk another one, especially with something like AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why that article from MIT Technology Review really resonated with me. There can be no winners in an AI arms race. It's a pretty scary reminder that this isn't some game.
Yeah.
We're not talking about winners and losers here. We're talking about something that could affect the future of humanity.
So it seems like we're at this crossroads, competition or cooperation, isolation or collaboration. And Trump, the wild card, he really has a lot of power in deciding which way we go.
He does, especially for the U.S.
Yeah.
And whatever he decides, it will have ripple effects, not just for the U.S. and China, but for the whole world. I mean, the future of AI, whether it's used to solve global problems or to make them worse, it all comes down to this delicate balance.
It's a lot to take in. And even for someone like me who follows this stuff closely, it's overwhelming. So if you had to pick one key takeaway, what would it be? What should our listener really walk away from this deep dive understanding?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is this. We're entering a whole new era. The old rules, they don't apply anymore. China is rising. AI is changing everything, and leaders like Trump are going to decide how it all goes down.
And it's not just about governments and big companies.
No, no, not at all.
This is going to affect each and every one of us.
The jobs we have, the way we live our lives, it's all going to be shaped by this. It's
Yeah.
exciting and a little scary at the same time. We have this incredible opportunity to use AI to solve some of the biggest problems we face, like climate change, diseases. But we also have to be really, really careful. Make sure this technology is used ethically, responsibly, so everyone benefits, not just a select few.
So what can our listeners do? I mean, it all seems so huge, so complicated. How can one person make a difference in the face of all this?
That's a really important question.
Mhm.
And, I think it starts with just being aware. Stay informed,
Mm.
learn about AI, what it can do, how it might affect society. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to navigate all of this
Right.
and make informed choices.
So don't be afraid to ask tough questions, challenge assumptions, and get involved in conversations about how we use AI ethically. The future isn't set. It's being shaped right now by all the choices we make, individually and collectively.
Exactly. Be a part of the conversation. Advocate for responsible AI development. Support the people and organizations that are promoting collaboration and ethical use. Your voice matters, and together we can make a real difference.
You know, this may sound a little dramatic, but it really feels like we're at a crossroads. The decisions we make today, they're going to determine the kind of future we create for ourselves and for our kids and grandkids.
I don't think that's dramatic at all. That's just the truth. The future isn't set in stone. It's being shaped right now by every single choice we make,
Mm.
whether it seems big or small.
So to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to think about as they go about their day, what role do you want to play in shaping the future of AI?
It's a powerful question. It's something we should all be asking ourselves.
It is, and on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. It's been quite a journey full of surprising discoveries and thought-provoking insights and a whole lot of uncertainty. But that's the world we live in, isn't it? Always changing, always challenging us to adapt and think critically. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.